What's going on, everybody? It's your favorite YouTuber, Austin Holloman, and we are back again with another video. And today we will be talking about my current view on my number one country, Brazil. How did I feel? How do I feel now after visiting 5 cities? Do I think you should visit? And is it really still my number one country throughout the entire world now that I've been to 23 countries, Portugal making number 23? I flew directly here from Manaus, Brazil. So I'm getting a direct comparison from another country to this one. I'm not even in Brazil anymore. Now, my initial feelings about Brazil when I first got there, first of all, Brazil was the first country I went to outside the United States. And Brazil was the country that made me realize that people are not the same everywhere because culture is not the same everywhere. And you know that's the truth. Anybody that's telling you, oh, people are the same everywhere, tell them to shut up, because that's stupid. You're not going to convince me that if I go to Saudi Arabia, the people are going to do the exact same stuff that they're doing this in the States. The culture and the laws don't even allow that. Now, yes, if you were to drop them off in a lawless land, would they behave the same at some point? Maybe. That's not the fucking case. I'm not living life in a what-if scenario. I'm living life in reality of what it really is. Now, Brazil was a place where people were not cold. In Rio, in specific, people were not cold. Dating was very in my favor. You know, it didn't feel like I was on a self-improvement endless hamster wheel. Life just seemed a lot more realistic there. Now, I left Brazil and I went to 20 other countries, and I pretty much had a very similar experience and beliefs by going to those other countries. I came back to Brazil after I came back from Paraguay, a country I was in for a good amount of time. I came back to Brazil and I started in a new city, which is Sao Paulo. Now, before I had left Brazil the first time, I had been to Salvador, Rio, and Recife. Those are the 3 cities I had been to. And I was in Sao Paulo before, but it was only for like literally 24 hours. And I came back this time and I stayed in Sao Paulo for 5 weeks. What I found was this second go around, I realized, oh, Brazil is just like the United States, where every single city is either a lot different or completely different than the other. I'll give you an example. Salvador Bahia was my city of choice. That's my number one city in Brazil. And Salvador Bahia was a city where it was live music playing everywhere. It was a beach town. The people were very, very friendly. If you asked where the grocery store was at, they wouldn't just tell you. They would walk you to the grocery store. When you walked in the room, women wanted to make it, they wanted you to know that they saw you. Like, that's how much interest they displayed. Now, whenever I went to Sao Paulo, that wasn't the case. If we want to talk about choosing signals, and for you guys that pretend that you don't know what choosing signals is a green light, meaning that if a chick finds you attractive, you're going to kind of catch her peeking at you or smiling or even waving at you. A choosing signal is not a woman approaching you. If it was approaching, I would have said approaching, for people that aren't smart enough to know that. Now, a woman approaching you and a woman sending you choosing signals in Sao Paulo, both of them happened to me, but I would never tell you to expect that there. I can guarantee you, and guys, I go to the gym, you know, I have straight white teeth, you know, I got good hair, you know, haircut, you know, I have a level of attractiveness about me. Even at my level of attraction, yeah, the choosing signals, no. It's not happening. In order for me to date in Sao Paulo, I pretty much had to approach. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just telling you guys, there's some places throughout the world where, yes, you're always going to have to walk up to the chick first for the most part, but some chicks they'll make it easier where it's like, oh shit, I see her looking at me. This is really not that hard to understand. But in Sao Paulo, yeah, more than likely, they're not even going to be looking at you. You're just going to have to try your luck and just approach and have some thick skin if you get rejected. Luckily, the rejections were not too harsh there. That was a completely different experience than I had in Salvador Bahia and in Rio. If you ask somebody for directions in Sao Paulo, they'll just tell you, but they're not going to walk you. No, that's better than some places like I've heard in Chicago. You ask somebody for directions, they'll just straight up just walk past you like you didn't say shit. So I guess it's not that bad, but it's just now that I've been so many places that I can critique down to a smaller level like this. And this is when I noticed Brazil was not the same on all parts. It's still better than where I came from. Like I'm not just because Sao Paulo wasn't on easy mode, it was still better than what I was used to before I left the States. I never felt like my thing. I would just say you just have to put in more work if you go to a city like Sao Paulo, but then you go to a city like Manaus, minimal effort. Now you got to have some level of attractiveness about you, yes, but like you don't have to try as hard. In Rio, you may have to try harder than Salvador. So you literally have to either go where everybody else is going, which is Rio, or you're gonna have to do what I do, which is try a bunch of places. Some people, idiots I should call them, are confusing me traveling around the world with I'm having problems everywhere I go. No, I'm traveling around the world because I want to see where do I want to live long term. And unlike your jealous ass, I have the benefit of being able to travel to find that out. And people watch my channel to see how this is going to turn out for me, or they're just watching to learn because maybe they want to know the same thing and they look like me or they have expectations like me and they're learning information from me. So for you guys that appreciate that, I love you guys. Like the video, subscribe if you have not already. Now, overall, my experience in Brazil compared to other countries, I would say Brazil as a whole is not the best experience. But the same, just like Kenya is not the best experience as a whole. Like Nairobi was top number, like I love that city. Mombasa, I would not lose any sleep at night if I never went there. Nakuru, I would not lose any sleep if I not went there. Brazil, if I never went to, well, actually, I would lose sleep if I didn't go to those cities. I love all those cities, even though they, well, I wouldn't know if I never went to Recife, I wouldn't give a damn. You know, so, but overall, Brazil still has, it's neck to neck with Kenya. I wish I would have never went to Kenya before I made this video, because then I would be able to tell you that Brazil was the best experience. But Kenya, it's neck to neck. Specifically, we're talking about dating, but not even just that, just overall. And it seemed like Kenya was even cheaper than Brazil. So overall, I would say Brazil was in my top two. It was the life-changing country, the friendliest country, one of the friendliest countries, I would say. I think Kenya has some beat with friendliness. Now, the cultural aspects, like, for example, friendliness, openness, and warmth of the locals. Like I said, if you guys ask people for directions in Brazil, they're going to walk you there. If let's use Salvador Bahia. You can walk up to anybody and just say, hey, how are you? Even if the woman or whoever you're approaching is not interested, they're going to at least have some fucking common courtesy to say good in you. It's very rare that you walk up to a person in Brazil and you say, hey, how are you? And they just walk past you, or they seem like it's very odd because this random person is speaking to me. They don't do that dumb shit. Leave that for the United States. In the United States, they do that stupidness. And that's why y'all are miserable. Because y'all can't even talk to people. It's strange for a stranger to walk up to people in the States. What the hell? So, you guys would never survive in 1950. The only reason people are able to have those beliefs is because of the internet. See, if we lived in the 1950s and you guys had this, oh, it's strange to meet people, it's strange to just walk up to a random person, you would have been a lonely motherfucker 50 years ago, 60 years ago. You would have been a very lonely person. Because the only way to meet somebody was to walk up to them. But we can't really blame it on the internet, because in Brazil, they have just as much internet as we do. Some of y'all don't believe that. Some of y'all believe they're living in huts. But they have just as much internet as we do. Yet, it's not uncommon to walk up to people and speak to them. I don't know what it is. Leave in the comments why you think that is. Now, Brazil has Carnival. That's pretty much the only event I know them for. It's cool. You know, I've never really been to the true Carnival. My first trip ever, I went during Carnival, but it was during COVID. So I didn't really get to experience it. Now, the food in Brazil is nothing for me to get online and brag about. Unless if we're talking about açaí or moqueca. And moqueca is like a fish soup dish kind of thing, right? With rice, I believe, is in. I haven't ate one in years, but and acai is almost like a little fruit. The food is good. I believe the food is healthier than it is in the States. But one thing I noticed about Brazil, I have to limit myself to one meal per day because I will start to actually get fat, just like I would in the States. But it doesn't feel as toxic, but I can gain weight if I eat more than one meal per day there. That could be the type of meals that they set up because they have beans and rice with everything, but I don't know. Versus when I was in Nairobi, Kenya, I could literally eat 3 meals a day and I was not getting any fatter. I was still losing weight eating 3 meals a day. So I think because it's in the Western Hemisphere, it may have, I mean, the GMOs may be different, but I will say the food, when I first left the States and went to Brazil, that was the first time I ate a banana that tasted like a piece of candy. Like the bananas tasted completely different. They even looked completely different in Brazil. The chicken and beef tasted completely different in Brazil than it did in the States. So the food is not the same. I'm sorry about that siren in the background, but the food is not the same. Brazil is known for some of its nicest beaches in the Amazon rainforest and the mountains, like, for example, Sugarloaf Mountain in Rio. You have a lot of places. Brazil has sand dunes. It has parts in the south of Brazil where it literally freezes just like it would in Europe. There's beaches that it's most known for. And, of course, like I said, the Amazon rainforest. It's like the United States, but even a little more diverse, I think. Like, we don't have rainforests in the United States. If you disagree, I would love for you to show me, because some of y'all like to disagree with everything I say. But I went through the Amazon rainforest. If you go to Manaus, Brazil, you don't actually go to Manaus if you don't see the Amazon. Like, I felt like without seeing that Amazon tour in Manaus, I would have not really experienced Manaus. Or what was the point? Because there's not shit to do in Manaus anyway. So you need to go to the Amazon rainforest. But the beaches in Brazil is honestly where I got the best social experience. Like, you can socialize with people at the mall. Clubs are not really the best places worldwide to socialize, but you can do it better there than I could when I was in Texas. But the beaches, they're playing music. People are drinking caipirinhas. Everybody's in a good mood. I've never seen a fight at the beach. I'm not saying it doesn't happen because I've heard about people getting shot on the beach. You know, that it is dangerous, right? But you're going to have a really good time on the beach in Brazil. That is the number one place if you live in Salvador or Rio, you will spend the majority of your time at the beach. Trust me. Now, the best place to experience urban life from my experiences in Brazil is not Rio, because that's a place that I would say you go experience a laid back beach culture, even though it is urban, because it's like, what, 7 million people that live there in that metro. Sao Paulo is the place for urban life. If you guys enjoy New York City lifestyle, that's where I would recommend you go. I like Sao Paulo, but I did not love it. I could live there, but I would not. I wouldn't choose to. And the social aspect was the reason why. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't. I was spoiled by Salvador, but I did like it. Now, I'm going to give you guys a unique feature or a highlight of every city I went to. Sao Paulo, I'm going to give you 2. Everything I needed was in that city. Everything. If we're talking about nice Ubers that you ride in, you know, rooftops, cigars, you know, a variety of women, you know, that was in Sao Paulo, right? But most importantly, they have that ginger hair. A lot of it's dyed from what I found out, but some of it's real. I met some chicks with real white chicks with ginger hair. I love that look. And that was all over Sao Paulo. Just FYI. Now, if we want to talk about Rio, Rio was known for the carioca look, the women that have that typical Brazilian look that's usually getting displayed on the media. That was there. There was a variety of people there in Brazil of all races, and Rio of all races. Laid back culture, you know, but Rio is very touristy. There's a lot of stuff to do there, but it's just very touristy. But I recommend that for the first city you go to in Brazil. Salvador was known for one thing I loved about Salvador was the energy. It was live music everywhere. Everybody was in a good mood. It was every day just felt like it was a day to just party. I couldn't really get anything done when I was in Salvador because the culture was just very sit around and drink caipirinhas all day, right? Recife had beautiful beaches with sharks, but it was very boring there, right? Lastly, Manaus is the Amazon rainforest, and they have the Pocahontas-looking women. So those are 2 things for each city. Actually, I was only supposed to name it, I did 2. Now, my best experience, let's say this, my best experiences were in Salvador. Salvador first, Rio second, Sao Paulo third, Manaus fourth. I had my best experiences, I would say. And I say Sao Paulo before Manaus because it seemed like I had a better time. Like the amount of dates I went on in Sao Paulo in 5 weeks, I did the exact same number of dates in Manaus in 14 days, which says a lot about the culture in between the two. But my best experiences were in Salvador whenever I would just walk somewhere and it was just at ease. Dating was just at ease. Like I just felt like I couldn't miss there. And there's certain places around the world. Listen, anybody that's getting on YouTube and they're not telling you their flaws, take what they say with a grain of fucking salt. Because nobody is perfect. Luckily, I'm one of the, I don't really give a damn what you think about me. So I'm one of the people that will post when I get rejected, when I get accepted. I don't have all the answers to life. Nobody has all the answers to life. So anyway, Salvador was a place that I felt like I couldn't miss. Did I miss sometimes? Of course, you're not winning 100% of times, but I sure could notice it because I was winning so much there. Now, my next point is infrastructure and accessibility. I found that Sao Paulo had the best infrastructure. All of Brazil I went to, except for Manaus, shitty internet there. But everywhere else had pretty much very fast 5G internet. The cars were the best in Sao Paulo. Like everybody had, like it felt like you were in America. When you get into an Uber, you know, it wasn't all, there's no air conditioning, run down, you about to be sweating. It wasn't like that in Sao Paulo. But when you go to Manaus or you go to Salvador or you go to Rio, yeah, you can get, the car you get in might be a real piece of shit. You know, the roads might be really messed up in those other cities. The internet might not be the greatest in Manaus like it is in Sao Paulo. So I would say out of the five, Sao Paulo was the best for infrastructure. It's the most Americanized city I went to in Brazil. And everything was pretty much up to par with American standard, which made it very livable. All the apartments were brand new or they were somewhat renovated on the inside. Everything looked very up to date whenever I was in Sao Paulo. Now, the best affordability I noticed was in Manaus. And then I would say Salvador. And then I would say Recife. And then I would say Rio. And Sao Paulo was the most expensive out of the five I went to. The cellular service in Brazil was very good whenever I went to Sao Paulo and I switched phone companies. Okay? Whenever I was in Salvador and I tried to get Claro or even Tim, they told me shit like, oh, your CPF is not new enough. For some reason, when I went to Sao Paulo, I didn't hear that. I don't know what that was about, but like I got several Brazilians to try to help me. They just didn't want to give me a cellular plan. So I don't know what was up with that. Flights are very expensive. I don't use public transport, but you can do it. I've only done it in Rio. It seems like it's a good place to possibly get robbed. Now let's talk about safety, because Brazil is known for being the most murderous country in the world. They have the highest number of intentional murders per year, last time I checked, which is in Brazil. You're not going to experience that. Like, I've lived in one of the most dangerous cities in South America, which is Salvador. It's not the most, but it's one of the most, right? Recife is even known to be one of the most dangerous cities. Manaus is not the safest city either. Sao Paulo, all that shit is dangerous. All of it's dangerous for the most part. Unless if you go further south, and that, I mean, that's not really a desirable area because it gets cold down there for most people. But I've never came close to being robbed in Brazil. And I've even been to some dangerous neighborhoods like Madureira. And now I came close then, but that was one time out of spending 5 months, 6 months in Brazil, you know. So it's there. It can be very dangerous. Just hasn't happened to me. And I thank God it hasn't happened to me. But I'm comparing it on places in other places around the world I've been to. If we compare it to Cartagena, I was in Cartagena for 3 days and I left because I felt just, it was too much unrest and unsafetyness. And this is after I had been to like 19 or 20 countries. So I wasn't just some new traveler. That shit was just dangerous. I've been to several countries in Africa. You know, I've been all around South America. Like I don't know why I never experienced crime in Brazil, but it is there. But I never felt unsafe. As long as you have a level of common sense and know where to stay at, more than likely, and you stay in the right city. Like I think if you stay maybe, it's not that big of an issue in Brazil. I would say it's not that big of an issue, but it is. The numbers do show that it's there, but usually that crime is concentrated in certain areas. Okay. Now you can live in Brazil in most cities in Brazil for like, if we went to all 5 cities I went to, you can live in all of them for $2,500 a month. You can get an apartment in Manaus, or you can get an apartment in Sao Paulo. Depending on what neighborhood you stay in, you can stay in that apartment for $500 a month. It's gonna be small, but you could do it. It'll be a comfortable apartment with all the amenities: a swimming pool, wash machine, right across the street from bars, several bars, right next door to a grocery store, right down the street from a Smart Fit gym. $500 a month, and you can walk everywhere. Okay, so that's $500 a month. You don't even have to cook because it's so cheap. You can budget another $500-600 a month for that, which is a lot. But that's $1,000. I don't even think I should have budgeted it that high. What else are you spending money on? If you really want to save money and you could walk everywhere, your Uber bill would be maxing out at $100 if we want to include entertainment. So you could live in Sao Paulo for $1,500-2,000 a month. You're not gonna be a king or just splurging, but you're not gonna be starving. Any other city that I named in Brazil that I've been to, the price drops even lower. Okay, I lived next door to the beach basically in Salvador for $550 a month. And my average meal eating out at a 3-star restaurant was like $8-10. So it's not that expensive. $2,500 to stay comfortable, I would say, though, is what you need. Now, one thing, and that is expensive. When you compare that cost of living to the cost of living that you can get in Argentina, or the cost of living that you can get in Colombia for sure, or the cost of living that you can get in Kenya or Vietnam or Thailand, yes, Brazil is expensive. But yeah, you're not living in Dallas for no $2,500 a month, so it's still not expensive because it's not as expensive as where you're from. So it's very cheap still. Now, if you guys think you're going to go to Brazil, I don't give a damn if you go to the most westernized city, which is Sao Paulo. If you don't know Portuguese, it will not be that easy living there. Spanish will help you a little bit. But if you don't know Portuguese, you are out of luck. Like literally at the best, I think at the highest when I was in Sao Paulo, maybe 30% of the people I met spoke 10% of English or more. Best comparison I can give you. Going to Brazil not knowing Portuguese is the equivalent of coming to the States and only knowing Portuguese. Who the fuck are you going to learn? I mean, how many people are you going to run into in Texas that know Portuguese? Not very many, right? So it's the same experience if you go to Brazil and you don't know English. Like, yeah, you might run into somebody. Good luck. You know, good luck ordering your food in English in Brazil. You know, especially we start talking about going to Manaus, Salvador. Yeah, no. There's people that know the English though, but I'm not going to tell you to go there. So you need to learn a language before you go there. I love the weather in Brazil, especially because I get to pick the city. I get to pick if I want to be in a city that gets colder now. But Sao Paulo have fair weather. Salvador have warm weather usually. Good quality of life. A lot of people are poor outside of Sao Paulo, so just keep that in mind. Sao Paulo, they have poor people too, but it's way worse when you get to Manaus and Salvador, right? So, now that I've been to 5 cities in Brazil, I told you Brazil is not the same. Brazil is still my number 1 country. It may be number 2 depending on what side of the bed I wake up on. I'll go back to Kenya and visit again. But Brazil is a beginner level travel country only if you go to Rio. Like, don't go to Sao Paulo for your first city in Brazil. Like, go to Rio. That is what it's there for tourists. Don't go to Salvador for your first city. Do not take your ass to Manaus for your first city. Because these other cities outside of Rio, you have to know Portuguese. Like, you might be able to get by for a little bit in Rio without Portuguese. But if you don't know Portuguese in Salvador, your ass is out of there. Okay? So overall, I think Brazil is still my number one country. To keep it plain and simple with you guys. And if you go, the number one countries that the number one cities that I would recommend is Rio first. After you learn your Portuguese, go to Sao Paulo so you can appreciate the things that Rio is good for. And then go to Salvador. Things that Brazil could be improved on that I've been to other countries I had no issues with is like safety. Like, for example, when I was in Kenya, never felt unsafe. In Brazil, I could see how some people could feel unsafe. Corruption is equally as bad in between those two countries. Cost of living is not too bad, but it could be better. But one thing Brazil does not need to improve on is the dating scene. That is one dating scene in all 5 cities that I thrived in. Now, some were not as good as others, but I mean, come on, dude. Like, I wasn't struggling in any of them. It was just some you had to put in a little more work. Some you just showed up. Not literally, but you just showed. It felt like you just showed up because it was on such a easy mode. But no, you don't. You still have to put in at least a little bit of self-improvement to make yourself decently attractive. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys found that very informative, and is Brazil your number one country? If so, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you guys want to see next. I love you guys. And the Cash App is $Austin Holloman. Again, if you guys found that informative or entertaining. I'll see you guys next time.